nationwide unemployment is low, it can be a little bit different on the regional level.
It's been challenging trying to get a job where you could say, thank you, God. You know what I mean? I'm good now, and I got the stress. That kind of work, yeah, it's been challenging for me.
Job hunting in Philadelphia, where the unemployment rate is higher than the national average. That's next on Marketplace. We'll be back with all things considered at 7 o'clock.
WNYC supporters include Swan Auction Galleries, hosting an autographs auction of important signed photographs from a California collection on May 7th. Information, bidding, and more at swangalleries.com.
This is WNYC 93.9 FM and AM 820, NPR News and the New York Conversation.
Marketplace is supported by Progressive. Progressive Commercial Insurance offers personalized rates and customizable coverages for your business vehicles. More at progressivecommercial.com.
Well, let's see. The bond market, international trade, the satellite business, and hey, when was the last time you made a new friend? From American Public Media, this is Marketplace.
Marketplace is supported by Amazon Business. Amazon Business offers smart business buying, which uses AI-driven tools to perform time-consuming procurement tasks, helping to simplify complex processes and streamline workflows. Learn more at amazonbusiness.com. And by Ninja One, the Ninja One unified IT operations platform used by 35,000 customers in over 140 countries with solutions to support IT resilience and operational efficiency. Unify IT, simplify work. NinjaOne.com. And by ADP Research, committed to making the world of work more productive through data-driven discovery. Insights at work for the future of work. Learn more at adpresearch.com.
In Los Angeles, I'm Kai Ryssdal. It is Tuesday today. This one is the 5th of May. Good as it always is to have you along, everybody. You know that thing I say sometimes, that if you want to know what the economy has in store for us, look at the bond market? Yeah, well, that. The yield on the 30-year Treasury bond, that is to say the interest the government's got to pay to borrow money, is higher today than it has been in almost a year. Marketplace's Kristen Schwab gets us going with the bond market tea leaves.
It's not so much that a 5% rate on the 30-year Treasury equals a 5-alarm fire. It's more like one of those psychological thresholds. Frank Warnock is a professor of business administration at the University of Virginia.
And I think more significant would be if we spend time north of 5%, if it breaks through and starts to be 5.5%.
Still, even a short stint at 5% comes with real-life consequences, especially since the 10-year Treasury yield is also hovering around highs for the year. Higher yields mean higher borrowing costs.
30-year mortgage rates, for example, or 15-year mortgage rates, or car loan rates.
What a 5% yield on the longest-term government bond says about the economy is that investors are worried about the war and oil supply and how they will affect prices. Adam Abbas is head of fixed income at Harris Oakmark.
I think the 30 year is really about, structural inflation expectations. Are they kind of more entrenched?
We've had a series of one-off inflationary events, a pandemic, tariffs, a war. Now they're blurring together to make high inflation feel like a fact of life. The bond market is betting the Federal Reserve agrees and will keep interest rates high or even raise them. Winnie Caesar, global head of strategy at CreditSights, says investors also worry about the deficit.
The government spends more than it takes in, which means it needs to plug that gap somehow. And that gap is plugged with debt.
Debt in the form of bonds. Caesar says the rate on long-term bonds has been headed upward since 2020 or so. It spent decades before that heading downward.
I think a lot of people are trying to figure out, is there something structurally different in the economy that should argue for elevated 30-year Treasury yields on a sustained basis?
The signal that the bond market might be sending is that the economy has fundamentally changed. I'm Kristen Schwab for Marketplace.
Wall Street today, everything's fine, isn't it? We'll have the details when we do the numbers. We got war, we got an energy shock, we got bottled up supply chains, we got tariffs, and we got today an update on the U.S. trade deficit, the difference between the value of what we buy from overseas and what we sell. It was up a bit in March, 4.4%, if you want to know. But even with that, the trade gap is down year to date over the same period in 2025, a major goal, as the president reminds us all the time, of his administration. But as Marketplace's Mitchell Hartman reports, there is a whole lot more than the president's tariffs driving this thing.
A 4.5% monthly increase in the U.S. international trade deficit, says Thomas Ryan at Capital Economics.
On the surface, sort of looks quite boring, but it's actually quite interesting.
So convince me.
This was the first month you saw the impact of higher energy prices as a result of the Iran war.
Remember, the U.S. is now the planet's top petroleum producer. Gary Schlossberg at the Wells Fargo Investment Institute points out the value of our fuel exports rose nearly 25% in March. Other exports are also getting a boost.
The U.S. is the supplier of last resort. We're an ag producer. Ag trade has been disrupted. Ag exports, they were up 8%. And then defense equipment was another area of strength.
Still, the trade deficit did widen a bit in March. And that's because while exports rose, imports rose even more, driven by demand for computer equipment to run AI data centers, also passenger vehicles and other consumer products, which is good news, says nationwide economist Oren Klatchkin.
It shows that consumers continue to spend, businesses continue to dole out capital.
The trade deficit is likely to hold pretty steady in coming months, predicts Mary Lovely at the Peterson Institute for International Economics. Tariffs aren't causing wild swings in import flows like they did last year, and U.S. demand for imports remains strong.
So the deficit overall is not going away, it's moving.
China has fallen from the top exporter to the U.S. to number 4, behind number 1 Taiwan, which supplies us with AI equipment, and also Vietnam and Mexico, where companies are moving more production to supply the U.S. market. I'm Mitchell Hartman for Marketplace.
Among the many slices of this economy affected by the president's war with Iran is what's known as the Earth observation industry, and one of the biggest names in it, a company called Planet Labs. Krish Nikara wrote about it for Bloomberg the other day. Thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
I learned a new phrase today reading this piece, the Earth observation industry. What is that?
Sure. I don't think everybody knows this maybe, but there's satellites that are orbiting Earth and they're taking pictures of what's happening on the ground every single day. And governments have been doing this for a long time. This industry kind of came out of the government, but now there's a whole commercial sector that's launching satellites, beaming imagery down. It's a $5 billion industry globally speaking.
And Planet Labs is the biggie, yes?
Planet Labs is definitely one of the biggest players. They have, over 200 satellites in orbit, and critically, they take pictures of the Earth every single day. And then the platform that they've built is kind of more like a streaming service rather than ordering images on demand. So anybody can go. I should note that Bloomberg News is a customer of Planet Labs, but anybody can go and look at this data and see what they want to see on the ground.
So who are their typical customers before we get into the reason we're talking to you?
Sure. Government's the biggest one, and I'm sure we're going to get into that and the tension there. On the commercial side, it's kind of all over the place. There are companies that are doing things like maritime tracking of ships in the Strait of Hormuz, for example. There's big agricultural giants, so think about Bayer. Any kind of intelligence operations where you're trying to assess what's happening on the ground. That's where those customers are.
Okay, to that tension and the government. Early last month, Planet Labs announced that the government had come to them and requested that they, suspend their service. Explain that a little bit.
Sure. Yeah. Just about a month ago on April 5th, Planet Labs announced that they had gotten this voluntary request from the government. We should note that they said that it was voluntary.
Yeah, that's air quotes
basically,
right?
Yeah. Yeah, air quotes, definitely, because, so over a large section of the Middle East, so this is not just Iran, but this is all the Gulf countries. This is Israel, Lebanon, so it's a very large section of the world. So they moved to what's called this managed access model. So all that imagery in their streaming service like platform, it disappears. You can't look at it anymore. And, they kind of decide on a case by case basis what to let out.
The ostensible reason here has to be national security, right? That's what the Pentagon and the government was asking.
Yeah, so I think that's a question kind of worth teasing out a little bit. There are real national security risks. So at the highest resolution that these satellites can image at, you can make out really detailed battle damage assessments. You can look at troop movements and things like that. But I also talked to other people who are experts in the same sector who say that because of the latency that's involved in actually from when an image gets captured in space to that actually getting on the ground and you having time to look at it, that latency is kind of long enough such that it's not really relevant from a military standpoint. And so I would say critics would say that there's not really legitimate military reasons, but really this is more about bad press.
Huh. So what are would-be customers of Planet Labs and Bloomberg as well doing? Are there other sources? Can they go to like a Chinese satellite imaging company?
You guessed it. So China's a huge player in Earth observation. After the U.S., they're kind of the next biggest player in terms of capability, in terms of getting images from space. Some folks that I talked to from the commercial side, a lot of those folks are turning to companies that are not based in the U.S. So Airbus is a big example. So people are considering Chinese imagery as well. And one interesting thing to note there too is that there have been Chinese companies that have been out there that have been publishing imagery and analysis on U.S. troop movements. So, you can't stop everything.
No, you can't. Just to wrap it up, this voluntary, again, in air quotes, request, there's no expiration time, right? I mean, it's TBD when they get permission to come back online.
Yeah, they made a statement saying that, they're working to restore access as soon as possible. I should note that, they reached out to us just a few days ago, and they are starting to try to lift some restrictions, not over Iran, but over Lebanon and a couple of other areas in the Middle East. And I should note also that is still not kind of full open access, like where you can see it in their platform. You still have to talk to them to get imagery, but I think they're trying to open up as soon as possible. But for now, the restrictions are still in effect.
Yeah. Krishna Lukhara at Bloomberg, fascinating piece on the Earth observation industry. Krishna, thanks a lot. I appreciate your time.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
The Census Bureau told us today that the number of new homes sold in this economy rose 7.4% February to March. That is good for builders. It's good for buyers. Perhaps not so rosy, though, for the $500 billion home remodeling industry. A report out this morning from the Joint Center for Housing Studies at Harvard says spending on remodeling is going to grow by just 0.5% in the coming year. Daniel Ackerman is on that one.
Rachel Bogardus-Drew of Harvard's Joint Center for Housing Studies says the outlook for the remodeling industry is, in a word,
stable, because that's a little bit more optimistic sounding than stagnant or flat.
Drew says the number of homeowners seeking remodel permits has grown more slowly of late, and sales of supplies like faucets and windows are down.
So people are spending less on the building products. When they spend less on that, we know that they're spending less as well on the services for remodeling.
In the face of this slowdown, Drew has some advice for contractors.
Lean on your higher income clients.
Yes, the K-shaped economy is alive and well in the remodel industry. Anirban Basu, CEO of Sage Policy Group, says that's in part because wealthier homeowners tend to be more seasoned ones.
they're aging in place, right? We've got a lot of baby boomers. They need to deal with steps in their homes and these kinds of things. They need to have safer bathrooms and kitchens. And so a lot of remodeling activity from that.
Along with the owners, America's housing stock is aging too, which means those homes will need a little more TLC to stay livable. All of which leads Basu to believe the outlook for remodeling is stronger than it may appear. So his message to contractors right now?
Do not reduce your capacity to deliver services to the market.
Even that is difficult, though. President Trump's immigration crackdown has made it harder for remodelers to find and retain qualified workers. But it's still important to try, says Macrina Wilkins, Director of Market Insights with the Associated General Contractors of America.
Securing and having an established workforce will put you in the best possible position to be able to take on contracts that become available.
Wilkins says more of those contracts should come if the rising cost of building supplies ever starts to ease. I'm Daniel Ackerman for Marketplace.
Coming up.
You look at something for 5 seconds and then all of a sudden you're getting a million ads.
Hate it when that happens. First, though, let's do the numbers. Dow Industrial's up 356 points, 0.75%, finished at 49,298. The Nasdaq added 258 points, that is 1%, 25,326. S&P 500 gained 58 points, 0.8%, 72 and 59. Everything is fine, just like I said, right? Intel up almost 13% today after Bloomberg reports Apple talked to the chip maker about making processors for its devices. Apple shined up 2 2/3% on the day. Pinterest is forecasting revenues for this quarter are going to come in above what Wall Street had been guessing. The image sharing platform pocketed 6 9/10%. Duolingo added 21% more daily users and paid subscribers last quarter, but it expects about half the rate of growth going forward. So what do you think happened? Duolingo shed 5 6/10% is what happened. Bond prices, we'll just do the 30-year today. The yield on the 30-year, 4.99%. You're listening to Marketplace.
The Numbers is supported by Odoo.com, your entire business on one platform. Marketplace is supported by 3 Day Blinds, with more than 45 years designing, manufacturing, and installing custom window treatments in a range of styles, like motorized treatments for home automation. Online bookings and consultations at 3dayblinds.com. And by Bitwarden Password Manager. Whatever travel plans this summer has in store, Bitwarden is designed to give users secure access to all of their accounts across any device anywhere. Available at bitwarden.com. And by GEP, at the forefront of agentic procurement orchestration and autonomous supply chains. With GEP Smart Software, GEP Key Agentic AI, and Strategy Consulting, GEP works to help business optimize value and reduce risk.
WNYC is built on listener support. Your donation supports reporting from the WNYC Newsroom, NPR, and the BBC. Keeping you informed and connected to events in your community and the world is our commitment to you. Please commit to us with your financial contribution today by becoming a member now. Visit WNYC.org and click on Donate.
WNYC supporters include Show and Tell, presenting an evening with Fran Lebowitz at the Town Hall, December 11th and 12th, featuring a moderated conversation and audience Q&A. Tickets on sale this Friday. Tickets at Ticketmaster.
You're listening to Marketplace on WNYC. Coming up in the 7 o'clock hour of All Things Considered, President Trump claims consumer confidence is way up. Well, that contradicts the latest research. We're going to get that latest research and much more at 7 o'clock. We hope you stay with us.
This is Marketplace. I'm Kai Ryssdal. The national unemployment rate, regular listeners to this program will know, has been a bit above 4% for more than a year now. We'll get an update on Friday morning. It'll be the April number. But a low national rate doesn't do you much good when the local rate is a lot higher. Marketplace's Samantha Fields went to Philadelphia.
In the last year, more than 17,000 people have walked into an old Art Deco office building in the center of Philadelphia, looking for help finding work. Inside is one of 4 publicly funded job centers in the city.
You can walk in. Here are hours of operation right here on the door. So we're open from 8 to 4:30 every day.
Dawn Thomas Hayward is with Philadelphia Works, the city's nonprofit workforce development board, which runs this and 3 other career link centers.
Main lobby. Going up.
At the check-in desk on the 2nd floor, there's often a line, especially in the morning.
I just got laid off. They are now in line either to see their workforce advisor, to go use the computer resource center, do job search, get resume help, get into trainings.
Anyone can walk in, Thomas Hayward says. The job centers are open to the public. James Anderson is here today. He first came in 5 or 6 years ago when he was in his mid-50s.
I was incarcerated, tired of that circle in and out. And I thought maybe I'd just start looking into some of the resources that's available and see where it could lead me.
He told his advisor then that he was interested in vocational training, and they got him into a program to get his commercial driver's license.
They funded everything, like really helped me get that opportunity to get into a new future.
But without much on-the-job experience, Anderson says it's been hard to land steady full-time work at a good company. Right now, he's only working 1 day a week and not as a driver.
It's been challenging trying to get a job where you could say, thank you, God. You know what I mean? I'm good now, and I got the stress. That kind of work, yeah, it's been challenging for me.
It's challenging for a lot of people to find work right now. Elizabeth Giddings sees that every day, working one-on-one with people to help them find a job or get into an apprenticeship or training program.
When I do an orientation for the individuals to get a workforce advisor, the room is packed. So I know the economy is pretty bad.
And those one-on-one appointments people can make with her or another advisor are booked until June.
A lot of people are just becoming laid off. And I see individuals that come in that have been laid off since last year, the early part of the spring, and they still have not obtained employment.
Philadelphia's unemployment rate has risen from about 4.5% in December to 5.3% in January. Patrick Clancy, the CEO of Philadelphia Works, says it's consistently higher than both the state and national average.
One of the challenges we face as a city is our adult literacy rate. We are severely challenged with some of our adults unable to pass a 6th or 8th grade reading and math test.
Almost 40% of adults in Philadelphia struggle to fill out a job application, according to a local literacy nonprofit. The city is also the 2nd poorest in the nation, after Houston. And Clancy says poverty creates a lot of barriers to employment.
Without stable housing, going to work is really a challenge.
The same is true if you can't afford transportation, food, or childcare. And on top of all of that, the labor market in the city just feels stagnant right now, much like it is nationwide, Clancy says. All the uncertainty and higher costs around tariffs have made many employers hesitant to hire for a while. And now the war in Iran and higher oil prices are just adding to that.
The sooner we can have more confidence in the economy, then I think employers will feel that way too. But at this point, I think we're still in that sort of hesitant mode.
And there's more uncertainty ahead for Philadelphia's economy, with Medicaid cuts looming next year. Healthcare is one of the city's biggest industries.
You being taken care of, sir?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
But for all the challenges, people are getting jobs. About 70% of those who come into these career link centers find something. Every time Elizabeth Giddings learns that someone she's been working with has been offered a job, she's thrilled.
I get up and go to my supervisor. I say, I got another placement. And I just be excited for them. I let them know that, hey, you got a job. We're going to assist you. We're going to help you with transportation until you get your first paycheck. We're going to help you with the career wardrobe to get you 3 new outfits so you can go on that new job looking really nice.
For some people, she says that moment might come in a few months. For others, it can take a year or more. I'm Samantha Fields for Marketplace.
When's the last time you met somebody just out in the wild, and made a friend? If you can't remember, well, join the club. But this being a digital economy, there is an app for that. Amara Hashem-Steele is an editorial fellow at the Canadian website The Walrus. She wrote about some of those friendship apps, and she tried some too. Thanks for coming on the program.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Tell me, how you came to be using these apps, these friendship apps?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I started seeing ads for them all the time. And I think the way that, Instagram advertising works, you look at something for 5 seconds and then all of a sudden you're getting a million ads.
Yes.
And I became really curious about whether they worked.
Are you like the target demographic? Who are these apps trying to get?
I think in a way, yes, and in a way, no. I think I'm the target demographic and that I'm Gen Z, I'm young, my job is often remote, and so I don't see a lot of my coworkers face to face all the time. But I also think that these apps really specifically target people who are working in really high earning fields where they work really long hours. Right. And so they maybe don't have the time to invest in hobbies, but they have a lot of disposable income to put towards kind of a paid algorithmic friend making service.
So in 45 seconds, you tried them. What was it like sort of experientially?
Yeah, so I was a little cynical, I think, going into it about what this was going to be like. I think I did not have a lot of faith in the idea that an algorithm could actually match me with people who I could connect with. Mm-hmm. I think that I enjoyed my experience and I came out feeling like I could see use cases for this where it makes a lot of sense. People talk to me a lot about how it's really great for solo travelers, for example, and that makes a ton of sense. I think for me personally, as a method of friend making though, I did kind of maintain my initial position of this probably isn't for me, but it was interesting to try.
Out-of-pocket costs, other than the dinner that they set you up with, how much is this going to run me if I desperately need a friend?
Yeah, so 222, I can tell you in US dollars, it's $22.22, so that's kind of cute per month.
Kind of cute, yeah. A little too on the nose,
left,
actually, but whatever.
Time left, I can tell you it's 25 Canadian, so that would be something smaller USD, but then you can get a 3-month or a 6-month package, and then that lowers the price even more. But then, of course, none of that includes the cost of the dinners.
Right. So that's just the buy-in, as it were.
Exactly.
Right. You have a great line in this piece talking about reducing a human problem, finding a friend, right, to an interface and a price point. And boy, does that take the romance and then, well, not romance, wrong word, but that takes the sort of human element out of a lot of what's happening here if you're finding a friend.
Absolutely. And it's interesting because I think that these platforms, part of the appeal and part of why people want to pay for them is because they do have that illusion of authenticity and kind of spontaneity where you're not seeing, with something like Hinge or Tinder, you're actually seeing that mechanical process and you're part of the process, where with Time Left or 222, you get to kind of buy into the illusion of, oh, this is just happening naturally, but in fact, it's this sort of technological process working behind the scenes.
Yeah. You alluded to it a minute ago, but you're done with these things, right? You'd go back if you had to, but for now, you're fine without it?
Yeah, I would say ultimately not for me. I do think that kind of solo travel use case was the one that was most appealing to me in terms of if I could ever see myself on these platforms again. But I think barring that, probably not.
Yeah. Amara Hesham-Steele, she's an editorial fellow at The Walrus. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Marketplace is supported by BMC. BMC helps customers worldwide run and modernize their businesses by automating, managing, and optimizing complex IT environments. Learn more at bmc.com. And by Odoo.com, offering integrated programs for sales, customer relationship management, inventory, and other business operations, designed to work together as a customizable software suite. Odoo, all your business on one platform.
This final note on the way out today, in which quarterly earnings season looks set to become semi-annual earnings season. Today, the Securities and Exchange Commission, as has long been rumored, I must say, proposed a new rule that would let publicly traded companies report their financials once every 6 months instead of once every 3. Increased regulatory flexibility is the phrase that SEC Chair Paul Atkins used. Jordan Manges, Anil Maharaj, Janet Wynn, Olga Oxman, and Virginia K. Smith are the digital team. I'm Kai Ryssdal. We will see you tomorrow, everybody. This is APM.
WNYC supporters include